The ticking of the wall clock was the loudest thing in the room. Not the doctor's voice, not the rustling of paper, not even the quiet hum of the fluorescent light, just that steady, uncaring tick. Evangeline sat on the cold vinyl chair, knees pressed tightly together, hands clenched in her lap. Her fingers were ice. She didn't remember when they got so cold. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat softly, and the sound felt like a gunshot in the silence. Evangeline, I'm sorry, but the results confirm it. He paused, maybe waiting for her to say something, but she was still frozen. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. It's called adenocarcinoma, he continued, a rare form. It's already aggressive, and he hesitated. It's deep within the glands. It's not something we can ignore. She blinked, once, twice. Her mind clung to the syllables. Carcinoma. It sounded made up, like something out of a science fiction novel. How bad is it? Her voice was thin, like someone else was speaking through her throat. Dr. Morrison sat back slightly in his chair, the leather creaking. The standard treatment isn't very effective. 15% success rate, maybe less in cases like yours. There's an experimental therapy, highly promising, but... She interrupted. But? He sighed. It's not covered by insurance, and the cost is steep. $200,000. Evangeline felt a numb kind of laugh rise in her chest, but it didn't come out. She only nodded once, as if this wasn't about her. And if I don't do anything, she asked. The doctor was quiet for a long beat. 6 to 8 months. It wasn't a death sentence. It was a countdown. She stared at the ceiling, at a crack running through one of the tiles. She wondered how long it had been there. Probably years. Time moves like that. Quietly cracking, splitting your life apart without anyone noticing, until you do. A wave of coldness washed over her body. Not just physical, but the kind that starts in your chest and spreads like fog to your limbs. She looked down at her hands. They were trembling now, but still, no tears. Her first thought wasn't about dying. It wasn't even about pain. It was this quiet, shameful fear. What if I become a burden? But the second thought, darker, louder, what if no one even cares enough for me to be one? Her voice broke the silence again, smaller this time. Does it have a name? Dr. Morrison softened. Yes, adenocarcinoma. She nodded again, slowly. That was the moment it became real. Not when he said cancer, not when he said 6 to 8 months, but when the monster inside her finally had a name. The living room was warm, too warm. The kind of heat that made the air thick and sticky, like syrup over a wound. Evangeline sat on the edge of the couch, back stiff, palms damp, eyes locked on her parents across the coffee table. Her heart beat like a warning drum in her ears. On the other side, her mom was flipping through wedding brochures, glossy pages filled with white sand beaches, champagne fountains, and floral arches. The Ritz-Carlton in Maui, her mother squealed. Marcus, wouldn't that be perfect? Her brother grinned all teeth and no substance. His fiancée Bethany giggled like she was auditioning for a reality show. It's $150,000 just for the venue, her mother continued. But come on, you only get married once. Evangeline cleared her throat. I need to talk to you about something important. No one looked up. Her dad was doing math on a calculator. Her mom was circling venue options with a pink highlighter. I got my test results back, she said louder. Silence. A beat. 2. Then her dad waved a hand vaguely in her direction. Evangeline, your thing can wait. We're trying to figure out the wedding budget. Her thing? Stage 4 adenocarcinoma. Not the flu, not a headache. A ticking death sentence. Evangeline felt something inside her crack like glass under pressure. My oncologist says I need experimental treatment, she pushed. It's my best shot. But it's $200,000, and the insurance doesn't cover it. That got their attention. Her mom set down the brochure. Her dad looked up. For a second, hope flared, small. 200,000, her dad repeated. His voice was tight. Yes, she whispered, but the success rate is 70%. With standard chemo, it's only 15. Her mom frowned. Those are just numbers, sweetheart. Doctors always exaggerate. Remember when Marcus broke his leg? Her dad jumped in. They said he'd never play football again, and look at him now. He hasn't played football since high school, Evangeline replied, almost laughing. Still, her mom shrugged, picking the brochure back up. This wedding is important. Bethany's family has connections. It could open doors for Marcus's business. Marcus's business, his third failed startup. Evangeline swallowed the lump in her throat. I might only live once. Silence. Again. This time, longer. Heavier. Bethany shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we could cut the guest list from 300 to, 250? We can't uninvite people, her mom gasped like someone had cursed in church. Evangeline stared at them numb. So, shrimp towers are more important than my life? Don't be dramatic, her dad snapped. Don't be dramatic. The phrase sat in her chest like a stone. This wasn't drama. This was her life. This was death, real and near. And it had just been postponed, pushed aside, like a chore, like her thing. To them, her cancer was just a number. 15% survival rate, $200,000 cost, 6 to 8 months to live. That's all it was. Data, figures, and her thing. Not a life, not their daughter's life, just a math problem that didn't fit into the wedding budget. You're young, her mom had said. You're strong. There must be other options. And when Evangeline explained that the other options gave her a 1 in 6 chance of surviving, they simply nodded and moved on. No hugs, no tears. No, we'll find a way. Just quiet, polite discomfort, like she had brought up an awkward topic at a dinner party. What hurt most wasn't a lack of money, it was the lack of urgency. The way they reacted to her cancer, the same way they'd react to a scratched car or a lost airline ticket. Annoying, but manageable. Bethany was still picking out napkin colors. Marcus was still planning the playlist. No one saw her. Not really. Evangeline had become invisible. The girl who paid her way through college. The one who stayed up late tutoring Marcus when he nearly failed senior year. The one who covered the electric bill that winter when Dad's business hit a dry spell. All forgotten. Because Marcus, the golden son, the future of the family, was getting married. And Evangeline, she was just the sad subplot they didn't want in their happily ever after. That night, lying alone in bed, her mind echoed with everything left unsaid. You gave Marcus everything. I only asked for one thing, one chance. And even that was too much. The call came on a Wednesday. It was raining. Of course it was. The kind of slow, cold rain that seeped through jackets and reminded you how alone you really were. Evangeline had been staring at the wall for hours, numb, exhausted, hollow. She hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. She didn't have the strength to cry anymore. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, she wouldn't answer. But something in her gut said pick up. Ms. Evangeline Brooks, the woman on the line asked. This is Christine from First Gate Trust. We're calling about recent activity on your family trust account. Evangeline sat up straighter. What kind of activity? There was a full withdrawal yesterday, $200,000. The account is now closed. Her stomach dropped like an elevator with the cables cut. What? Her voice was barely a whisper. As you know, the account is managed by the trustees, your parents, until your 30th birthday, or, in the case of a qualifying emergency. This is a qualifying emergency, she said, her tone sharp now. I have terminal cancer. A pause on the line. Yes, ma'am. But the trustees authorized the full transfer yesterday. Several large payments were made to vendors in Hawaii. Hawaii. She didn't scream. She didn't throw her phone. She just sat there frozen, staring at the floor while the world turned to ash around her. The silence on the line stretched. Ma'am, are you all right? No, she wasn't. And it wasn't because she was dying. It was because her family had chosen to let her. She didn't drive. She flew through red lights, across intersections, into the driveway with tires screaming. She didn't knock. She didn't call ahead. She slammed the door open so hard, the family dog barked from the backyard. Her mother looked up from the dining table, fork halfway to her mouth. Her father paused mid-sentence. Marcus blinked. Bethany gasped. The table was set for Sunday dinner. Candlelight, roasted chicken, laughter, a picture of normal. Evangeline stood in the doorway like a thunderstorm with legs. You took the money. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the room like glass. Her mother set her fork down gently, like nothing had just happened. Now, Evangeline, let's not ruin dinner. You took my treatment money. It's not your money, her father replied. It's the family trust. And I'm dying. That is a family emergency. It's also a wedding, her mother shot back, and that's an investment in Marcus's future. The room went still. Evangeline stared at her mother. No, not her mother. Just a woman sitting at a table defending a theft with the calm of someone ordering dessert. An investment, Evangeline repeated. We made a choice, her father said firmly. We had to prioritize. You prioritized shrimp towers over my survival. Marcus finally spoke, shrugging. You always make everything so dramatic. Evangeline laughed. Actually laughed. The kind of laugh that comes out when there's nothing left to cry. Yes, Marcus, she said bitterly. I got cancer just to ruin your wedding. You don't have to be cruel, Bethany whispered. Cruel is stealing someone's chance to live and calling it a budget decision. She scanned the table one last time. The wine glasses, the linen napkins, her father's Rolex gleaming, Bethany's perfect manicure, Marcus's smug little smirk. She turned to leave. I hope it's the wedding of the decade, she said quietly, because you paid for it with the rest of my life. Bethany cleared her throat. The tension still hung heavy in the room, like smoke that refused to clear. Evie, she said gently, using the nickname Evangeline hadn't heard since they were teenagers. I know things have been tense, but I still want you to be my maid of honor. The words didn't land like a gift. They landed like a slap. Evangeline turned her head slowly. She stared at Bethany as if she were speaking a different language. Your what? Maid of honor, Bethany repeated, smiling like it was some kind of peace offering. I mean, you're still family, right? The laugh came before she could stop it. Not a real laugh. Not the kind that warms a room. The kind that makes skin crawl. Bethany, she said deadpan, I'll be dead. The room went still. The silence was instant, total, and suffocating. Her mother blinked. Her father looked away. Marcus shifted in his chair. No one said, don't say that. No one said, we'll figure this out. No one said, we'll find a way to help. Just that silence. That terrible, awful silence. As if they all agreed that her death was not a tragedy. It was an inconvenience, one they had already accounted for. The studio apartment smelled like paint, bleach, and loneliness. 4 walls, 1 window, a mattress on the floor, a second-hand lamp. That was her new kingdom. Evangeline sold her books first, then her couch, her TV, her grandmother's ring. Piece by piece, her life disappeared into boxes and strangers' hands for $20 here, $50 there. All of it to buy one more chance at breathing. And through it all, her phone remained silent. No calls from her mother, no texts from Marcus, no check-in from Bethany, not even a how are you. She could have died, and no one in that house would have noticed until the wedding photos came back without her in them. She learned to do everything alone: drive to appointments, clean up after vomiting in the sink, sleep through the pain, wake up and do it all again. There were nights when she lay curled in that tiny room, coughing so hard she thought her ribs would crack. And all she could think was, so this is what dying quietly looks like. She wasn't afraid of death anymore. She was afraid no one would remember she lived. Chemotherapy didn't feel like healing. It felt like dying, but slower. The nurses were kind, the machines beeped, the chairs reclined. But nothing about it felt gentle. The drugs came in clear bags, dripping into her veins like ghosts. Cold, burning, foreign. After the first treatment, she threw up in the clinic parking lot. After the second, she blacked out behind the wheel and woke up to a blaring horn. No one drove her. No one came with her. She kept a plastic bucket in the passenger seat, a towel on her lap, mints in the glove box. She learned to drive home with blurred vision, to pull over and cry, to scream when the nausea felt like fire in her stomach. Her hair came out in clumps, first in the shower, then on her pillow, then in her soup. She stopped looking in mirrors. Once she sneezed and her nose bled for 15 minutes. She bled on the sink, on her shirt. She cleaned it all, alone. People say you learn who really loves you when you're at your worst. Evangeline learned something else entirely. Sometimes no one comes, and you survive anyway. 15%. That was her number. Not a lottery win, not even a fair coin toss, but enough. Enough to fight, enough to hope, even when the hope tasted like iron and bleach and bile. She never expected it. Not after being forgotten by the people who raised her. Not after watching her family pour her survival fund into monogrammed napkins and imported orchids. But it came. Quiet, simple, unasked for. Kindness. From the most unexpected places. Her old college roommate sent her a grocery delivery. No note. Just bags of soup rice and ginger tea. A neighbor from down the hall started leaving small things at her door. Bananas, paper towels, a used novel. The nurse at the clinic gave her an extra blanket every time. You don't have to return it, she'd say with a wink. And once, when Evangeline couldn't stand without trembling, a rideshare driver named Carl gently helped her into his car after a brutal chemo session. He didn't speak much, just drove slowly, carefully. But as he pulled up to her apartment, he looked at her through the mirror and said quietly, "You're the reason I still believe in bravery." Evangeline didn't know what to say. She was pale, bald, shaking, but someone believed in her anyway. And in that moment, she realized, maybe you don't need family to survive. Maybe you just need proof that the world hasn't gone entirely cold. The nurse called her name, and for the first time in weeks, Evangeline's legs didn't tremble when she stood. She walked down the hallway slowly, hands clenched, jaw tight. She had prepared herself for the worst. Again. Tumors spreading, lungs failing, clock running out. Dr. Morrison entered the room with a folder in hand. "You look stronger," he said. Evangeline forced a tight smile. Maybe just stubborn. He opened the folder, flipped through a few pages, and paused. A long pause. Then, "It's working." She blinked. "What?" "The tumors are shrinking. Not gone, not cured, but shrinking. You're responding better than expected." For a moment, her ears stopped registering sound. The words just floated there in the air, like feathers refusing to land. "So, I'm not dying?" Dr. Morrison hesitated. "You're not cured, but you're not where you were. You're stable, and stable means time. Time, something she hadn't dared to imagine in months. Time to breathe, time to think, time to fight harder." She left the clinic and stood in the sunlight like someone learning to walk again. The 15% chance they dismissed, she was that 15%. Not because of fate, not because of family, but because she showed up, because strangers fed her, because she kept fighting, even when no one else did. She wasn't supposed to be alive, but she was, and that alone was its own kind of miracle. It arrived in an envelope that glittered like wealth and entitlement, thick paper, gold foil, embossed lettering. Marcus and Bethany request the honor of your presence. She stared at it for a long time, her fingers trembling, not from chemo this time, but rage. They had spent her survival fund on this, on handcrafted invitations that probably cost more than a week of her treatment, and they still had the audacity to send her one, like nothing had happened, like she was just another guest. She put the invitation down, then picked it up again. For a brief moment, she considered burning it. But fire wouldn't give her what she really wanted: truth, exposure, a moment not to ruin their day, but to reclaim her story. She RSVP'd yes, not to celebrate, not to forgive, but to haunt the wedding they had built on her grave. They thought she would be dead by then. That was their mistake. She wasn't just alive, she was ready. The email subject line read, "Documentary inquiry, urgent and confidential." Evangeline almost deleted it. She'd grown used to spam scams and strangers asking for her story like it was gossip. But something about this one felt different. The filmmaker was working on a series about medical ethics and family dynamics. They'd seen her GoFundMe, then her blog. Then they read between the lines. Family betrayal, cancer, a wedding funded by someone else's death sentence. "We think your story matters," the producer wrote. "We'd like to document it, if you're willing. Even the wedding." Evangeline stared at the message for a long time. Film the wedding? Her instinct was to say no. But then she saw the invitation again. The gold foil, the flawless script, the lie. "Marcus and Bethany request the honor of your presence." She typed, "Only if it's discreet. Hidden cameras. I want their real faces when they see me." The response came in minutes. "We can do that. We'll wire you for audio. We'll pose as part of the event team." Evangeline leaned back in her chair. Not to destroy, but to reveal. She didn't want revenge. She wanted the world to see what silence really looked like. And she wanted them, her family, to finally hear what betrayal sounded like. She clicked confirm. Lights, camera, exposure. The sun over Maui was perfect. Of course it was. $300,000 bought good weather after all. Evangeline stepped out of the car slowly. Coral bridesmaid dress, wig styled to look like her old hair, thick, glossy, untouched by chemo. Skin pale, but foundation was a miracle worker. A glass of champagne in hand, though she wouldn't drink a drop. And a smile. Not the smile of celebration, the smile of someone who wasn't supposed to be here, but came anyway. The wedding staff didn't blink. She was just another bridesmaid, just another pretty girl in a dress. She walked through the lobby like a ghost in disguise. The documentary crew was already in place, posing as videographers. Hidden mics were live. She walked into the ballroom just as the cocktail hour started. Her heels tapped against marble, her breath steady, her heart loud, but controlled. Then her mother spotted her first. The look on her face cracked like porcelain, from joy to confusion to fear. "Evangeline," she whispered. Evangeline lifted her glass. "Surprise," she said softly. "I lived." The sun was beginning to dip behind the ocean. Perfect golden hour. The photographer clapped his hands. "Let's get the whole family together beachside, please." Evangeline walked slowly toward them, coral dress swaying, wig secured, flawless. Her mother stared at her like a glitch in the Matrix. Her father pretended to fix his cufflinks. No one said, "We're so glad you're here." No one said anything. They just scooted over, made space. She stood between Marcus and her father. Marcus didn't meet her eyes. Bethany smiled for the camera like nothing was wrong. And Evangeline smiled too, because if she didn't, she might scream. The camera clicked. One photo, One perfect lie. A family dressed in pastel elegance standing barefoot in the sand. Orchids flown in from Thailand curled behind them. Imported champagne glittered in flutes. The cost of that photo? About the same as the last month of her treatment. She looked into the lens and thought, say cheese, and pretend you didn't bury me for this backdrop. She smiled wider. Because they couldn't Photoshop guilt out of their eyes. The ballroom shimmered with candlelight, the clinking of champagne glasses, the soft clatter of dessert spoons, laughter blooming like well-trained flowers. Then the DJ tapped the mic. We now invite the maid of honor to say a few words. A beat, and then the sound of her heels. Evangeline walked up, slowly lifted the microphone with a steady hand. Behind her, the documentary crew focused in. 300 guests, smiles on pause. Thank you, she began, voice calm. Bethany, you look stunning. Marcus, this venue is spectacular. You really spared no expense. Nervous laughter, some clapping. I didn't know I'd be speaking today, but since I'm alive, I figured I should say something. A beat, then she smiled. May your marriage last longer than my odds of survival. Silence. May you never have to choose between someone's life and your party. Some gasps. She looked directly at her parents. And if you ever do, may you choose better than you did last time. A fork clattered to the ground. Someone muttered, Jesus. But she wasn't done. You see, I survived. Not because of you, but in spite of you. Then she raised her glass. To the ones who show up, even when they're not invited. She turned, walked off the stage. The ballroom didn't applaud. They just sat there and watched the silence explode. 2 weeks later, the documentary aired. The Price of Life, A Family's Choice. It opened with footage of Evangeline walking alone into chemo and cut to the golden wedding photos on the Maui shore. The contrast hit like a punch to the chest. She was narrating the whole time, calm, eloquent, devastating. They told me I was dramatic, she said in voiceover, but dying slowly didn't feel very theatrical to me. America didn't just watch, America reacted. The clip of her wedding toast went viral within hours. Celebrities shared it. Doctors commented on the lack of compassion. Talk shows lit up with outrage. She wasn't even worth the deposit on a shrimp tower, one host asked. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag stand with Evie. Hashtag the price of life. Journalists started calling. A Netflix executive tweeted one word, contact. But more than fame or press, what mattered most to Evie was this. She had finally been heard. The truth was no longer just hers to carry. The silence, it belonged to them now. They had always cared about one thing more than love image, the image of success, the image of unity, the picture-perfect family with white teeth and pastel smiles. But when the documentary aired, the image cracked, then shattered. Marcus lost his company's biggest investor within 24 hours. The deal tanked. The board quietly voted him out a week later. Bethany vanished from social media. Rumor was her father-in-law called off the honeymoon and said, "We don't marry into cruelty." Their mother, the charity queen, was dropped from every committee she sat on. Her phone stopped ringing. Their father was politely told that the golf club no longer aligned with his values. His keycard was deactivated. And together, the once envied family became a viral symbol, a meme, a cautionary tale. The Price of Life wasn't just a film title anymore. It became a mirror. People everywhere asked themselves, would I have done what they did? And the answer was always, God, I hope not. Evie didn't have to say a word. Their world spoke for her. It happened on a Thursday. The knock came around 6:47 p.m. Through the peephole, she saw all four of them, Marcus, Bethany, Mom, and Dad, standing awkwardly, holding a pie and a bouquet, like this was Thanksgiving dinner. They had finally come, when no one else was watching, when the cameras were gone. The same people who hadn't shown up for a single chemo session were now on her porch asking to be heard. A soft voice behind the door said, "Family shows up for chemo, not shrimp towers." No yelling, no crying, just a door that never opened. They stood there for a while. No neighbors came out, no one snapped a photo, just silence. And for the first time, they felt it, what it meant to be invisible. She didn't survive for them. She survived in spite of them. After the film, after the storm, after the silence, she moved to Seattle. Small apartment, gray skies, quiet mornings. But for the first time in years, peace. Not the kind that comes from reconciliation, the kind that comes from release. Her body still carried scars, but her voice had grown stronger. She began speaking at medical conferences. Her first talk was called "When Compassion Fails: The Ethics of Abandonment in Healthcare and Family." Doctors listened, nurses cried. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a teacher now, a mirror for an entire system that often failed the most vulnerable. She told her story not for revenge, but so no one else would ever sit alone in a chemo chair, wondering if they mattered. And when asked if she ever regretted telling her truth, she smiled and said, "Truth didn't save my life, but it gave me a reason to live it." 1 year to the day. It had been exactly 365 days since the wedding in Maui. The world had moved on. But Evie hadn't forgotten. In a slim envelope, she placed the photograph. It was the family photo from the wedding, all of them in designer suits and pastel gowns, smiling in the golden Hawaiian sun. She didn't write a letter, just a line on the back of the photo. Neat, precise. Beautiful wedding, paid for by a life. Yours lasted a day. Mine was stolen for it. No return address, no name. She sealed it and sent it to Marcus. She never followed up, never asked if he received it. Because she didn't send it for a reaction. She sent it to end the conversation forever. This wasn't revenge. It was punctuation. The period at the end of a sentence she didn't write, but damn sure finished. Sometimes survival isn't about healing the body. It's about reclaiming your story from the people who tried to bury it. Evangeline's fight wasn't just against cancer. It was against silence, against invisibility, against being forgotten. Through her eyes, we see what true courage looks like, not in the moments of glory, but in the quiet battles fought alone. And when she finally told her story, the world listened. Life doesn't always give us the family we deserve. Sometimes those closest to us may fail to show up when we need them the most. But survival is more than just battling illness or hardship. It's about reclaiming your story, your dignity, and your strength, even when the world tries to silence you. This story teaches us the power of resilience and self-worth, to never give up fighting even when the odds seem stacked against us, to find hope in unexpected places, often from strangers or within ourselves, to recognize that family is not just blood, but those who stand by us through the darkest moments, and above all, to own your truth and use it as a source of power, not shame. When life tries to bury you, rise. When others turn away, hold your ground. Your story matters, and telling it can inspire others to find their own courage. If Evangeline's story touched your heart and reminded you of the strength we all carry inside, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to Through Her Eyes for more real, raw stories of survival, courage, and hope. Stories that show the world through the eyes of those who refuse to be invisible. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of inspiration. Remember, your story matters. Let's journey together through her eyes.